Welcome back to ClayClan for year 3. You can find the first 2 years on the series playlist. Okay, first off, nobody died, yay! However, before we get to the clan proper, we have 2 cats outside the clan that I want to discuss first. I love creating suspense, but it's hard to write scripts around it. I don't have much to preface this, so let's just jump right in. Let's start with Shellbramble, who is trying to get back to the clan. If you've played ClanGen, you'd know that there's several ways for cats to get lost or get captured. You might also know that ClanGen has some seasonal patrol events. I played year 3 on Halloween. Shellbramble was abducted by a UFO. So I could rewrite this into one of the more regular patrol events, but this strikes too funny for me. Sorry Shellbramble, you're going to have a hell of a time getting back if you've not been returned to solid ground yet. A little bit on his time before the abduction. Shellbramble was given mentorship over Frostpaw. He was a pretty good mentor for the time he had her, though he couldn't see her become a warrior before he was abducted. On his relationships with others, he had gotten into arguments over petty topics with Fringemut and Thornkit, of all cats. The latter must have been fairly minor, because some moons into the year Shellbramble confessed his feelings to Roseheart, who accepted. So he and Oddheather were both mates with Roseheart, but just friends with each other. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see much of this relationship, because on the very same moon he confessed, Shellbramble was abducted by aliens. I'm still a little shook by that. So for over half a year, Shellbramble has been trying to get back home with no success. I'm rooting for him to return, if only for the sake of Roseheart, who has been having a pretty bad time. Because Oddheather was exposed as Carnation Leap's killer and exiled at the end of the year. I will be giving the details on how she was found out once we get to our detective. In game she was caught due to sleep talking, but that's boring, so we're going with a different scenario. Before she was found out as the murderer, Oddheather was happy for Roseheart and Shellbramble, showing no signs of jealousy, and she took over Frostpaw's training after the latter was abducted. They got along fine. She had been quietly stressed over StarClan and managed to get Swiftriver to shut up about a dream he had by just a look. He interpreted it as jealousy, but really she just didn't want to get caught. Otherwise she had been crazy good about not letting the mask slip, and it came as a complete surprise to her and her family when the murder was revealed. To reconcile her actions with her loving nature, I am saying that outwardly, Oddheather is a very calm cat, but the stress and anger builds up over time. So when she had her argument with Carnation Leap, the next time they were alone, she just snapped. She wanted her out of her life. Back to her being exposed and the fallout. Due to her overexerting herself the same moon she was exposed, I am saying that she fought back and had to be restrained. She wasn't exiled immediately, as Palestar didn't feel right about kicking her out in the middle of Leaf Bear, so she was held prisoner in camp until New Leaf. Palestar had been hoping the time would allow her the chance to repent, but ultimately the well-being of the clan came first, and Oddheather was exiled at the end of the year. She's been fairly self-centered in her regret. Weaselwhisker and Fringemut's grief didn't really affect her, but she was stunned by how her family looked at her like she was a monster. She seems to be more regretful at being caught than the act itself, but at least she hasn't expressed any other murderous thoughts. There's not a lot of interactions for exiled cats in-game, but I'll be keeping an eye out on her to see if there's any plot threads I can pull at. Okay, now to the clan proper. Palestar still has all his lives. His leadership was really tested this year. Instead of kicking Oddheather out immediately, Palestar chose to imprison her in camp instead. He really wanted to give her a chance to repent and explain herself, but she did not, and Palestar felt it best to exile her rather than go for any more drastic measures. Though now he's worried over the possibility of her joining the Rogues or other clans, but that's a problem for future Palestar to sort out. As for Small J, her mangled leg healed, but her new limp is here to stay, and she was left a bit scarred up. It was difficult to treat herself, and she's now even more miffed that none of Roseheart's kids wanted to become medicine cats. It's a matter she will get more and more worried about as the years pass. She'd like an extra pair of paws also because some pest absolutely decimated all of our herb stores. This game hates medicine, I swear. As for their relationship, they love each other dearly, but had another disagreement over kids. At this point, one of them must be having second thoughts. Or Small J doesn't want to compromise herself when she's the only medicine cat. There's also them both getting older, but I think they could be open to adopting again. Moving on to Roseheart, who has been doing great. So her new mate was abducted just after they got together, and the love of her life turned out to be a heartless killer. At least her kids are safe. Roseheart has adopted a very everything's fine attitude to avoid having to process what went down. She's thrown herself fully into her deputy duties, even at the cost of her personal relationships. She wants to be there for her kids, but that would mean working through her feelings, and she is not ready for that. As for how she fared before all that, Roseheart was grabbed and dropped by an eagle and broke a bone. Luckily, after a long rest, she fully recovered. Even without all of the drama, Roseheart would still be heavily focused on her duties on account of being out of action for so long. Also, she now reciprocates a crush Weaselwhisker has on her. For both of their sakes, I hope this is not a rebound. This girl is a hopeless romantic, and I mean that in the messiest way possible. Since there's not much to talk about individually, here's Chickpea and a new face, Quakeflick. Chickpea got some laurels to wear, and that's about it. She has been slowly getting to know her clanmates, being closest with Weaselwhisker. She's been friendly with the newbie, but has been getting annoyed with Quakeflick over her gifts, as her nest is about to be overrun. Quakeflick is a 64-moon-old former kitty pet that was abandoned by her two legs. She is righteous and an eloquent speaker. Since they're both cats that joined as adults, Quakeflick really wants to befriend Chickpea, feeling kinship with her. She's the kind to get laser focused on one thing and hasn't done much to get to know her other clanmates. She does show promise, however, as on a solo patrol, she was ambushed by rogues and was able to get away unharmed. This was our only rogue event this year, so maybe they've been busy with their own drama. Rather than let that plot point fizzle out, I might make up a scenario for a fight if things line up in game. We'll have to see. Next up is Splashflower, who has been getting some of his confidence back, having fully mentored Antlerpaw, one of Roseheart's kids. He was still feeling bad over Turtlepaw and saw this as his chance to redeem himself, which I think he did. He's also trying to be there for Roseheart as they both have platonic love for each other. He gets why she's avoiding him and tries to be patient. At least he got to be there for Antlerpaw. On another matter, Splashflower and Weaselwhisker went on a moonlit stroll, which was adorable. They are not mates. I've been waiting for them to get together, but it's not going to happen if they keep waffling. Though I can respect Splashflower for not putting too much pressure on him, considering all that Weaselwhisker has had to process. Maybe next year? Weaselwhisker was very close to just killing Oddheader when she was revealed as the murderer, but he was talked down. Instead, he has grown closer to his remaining kid, trading half-baked murder plans with each other. They were very glad to see her go once Leafbear ended. Before all that, he was named mentor to Tornpaw and did a pretty good job. We also found out, thanks to the Halloween event, that Weaselwhisker is not limited to seeing cat ghosts. He was frozen, scared as the spirits of the dead two legs were trying to pet him, while Tornpaw was left very confused by the ordeal she couldn't see. As for his love life, he has been slowly developing feelings for Splashflower. He even rolled around in some herbs the Autotom said he liked the smell of. But he also has a massive crush on Roseheart, and he doesn't know if he should pursue her. He had been hoping to dream of her, and he decorated her nest to make her feel better after Oddheader was exposed. It just feels a bit he's jumping in right when there's no competition, and coupled with Roseheart's feelings possibly being a rebound, this combo could be very messy. But I can't control what happens, and maybe nothing will. Swiftriver also got to be a mentor. His apprentice has yet to graduate, however, but it shouldn't be too long. Pale Star wanted to give him something to focus on, and he has been doing a good job. Right now he's sick with yellow cough, and I'm starting to wonder if he has a weaker immune system. And his late brother saw his future demise, so I'm a bit worried. Swiftriver still has not opened up to his clanmates, but he loves his parents. So far he has lived up to his strict nature, being duty-bound. He caught on a prank in time and was not fooled, and presumably chewed out the culprit. I'm saying it was Rypaw. He was fairly disconnected from the drama this year, and I'm glad for him. Frostlily shot up in relevance this year. Her first mentor, Shellbramble, was abducted by aliens, and her second mentor, Oddheader, turned out to be a murderer. And Frostlily was the one to expose her. But let's be chronological for a second. She was initially cold and tried to act aloof in her apprentice ceremony, but on the inside she was jumping for joy. Then, over her apprenticeship, she was acting out and being destructive, which Shellbramble cracked down on. Turns out she's still reeling from her abandonment and had been thinking of hunting down the rogues so she could find out why she was left behind. Shellbramble talked her out of that idea, and she was starting to warm up to her mentor when he was abducted. Afterwards, she was given to Oddheader, who she tried to keep her distance from, since Frostpaw wasn't really convinced that she would be in her life for long. Frostpaw had still been wondering about her heritage, and she started questioning her mentor about the 4 deaths that took place before she joined. She was mostly worried if her parent was a culprit and how that would reflect on her, but Oddheader shut down that conversation quick. Something about the way she was behaving troubled her, so it never really left her mind. In the meanwhile, she graduated. Frostlily was honored for her wit. She became righteous and a formidable fighter. She caught green cough for a little bit, and while she was stuck in the medicine den, Frostlily needled Small J over the rogue deaths and learned that Carnation Leap's death was a little less brutal, like she was snuck up on. Once she got better, Frostlily went out on her own to meet with the rogues to follow up on her suspicions, but also to get closure on her abandonment. She only accomplished one of these things as her parent didn't want to meet her. She was also driven out once she got too aggressive with her interrogation, and she was caught in a 2-leg trap that mangled her leg, which has still not healed. Luckily she was found, and she had a hell of a time explaining this all to Pale Star, who then communed with StarClan to get their guidance. All in all, Frostlily feels pretty accomplished with herself, even if she is still feeling hurt over her abandonment. Unfortunately, this strained her relationship with Oddheader's kids, who she was on the way to befriending, so right now she's kind of alone. Next up is Roseheart and Oddheader's litter, who are all kind of shook right now. Thornfeather is a sneaky kid-sitter who was honored for her shrewdness in her warrior ceremony. Weaselwhisker's influence has made her kind of reclusive, so she often gets stuck in her own head. Antlershard is a calm kid-sitter and a learner of lore. She was honored for her forethought. Splashflower did a great job with her, influencing her to be slow to anger and to think things through. Out of her sisters, she's the one that's taken Oddheader's nature and exile the best. Even though she still loves her mom, some things are not easily forgiven. Rypaw is charismatic, confident with words, and interested in clan history. She fell a bit behind her sisters in training, but she doesn't have much to catch up on. She'll likely get her warrior name in the next time skip. Overall, these 3 don't really know what to think. Oddheader was a good mom to them, and they can't see how she could do something so horrible. They've mostly taken up following Roseheart's lead and choosing not to think about it. Except for Antlershard, who worked out some stuff with Splashflower. I kind of want one of her cats to become a mediator so this family can have therapy. Frankly, the whole clan needs therapy. As you can probably guess, Fringemud hasn't been having a good time. She did recover from water inhalation, but she was still in pain from dragging herself around and got heat exhaustion. Then later in the year, her former mentor was exposed for murdering her sister, and she had to be okay with her staying in camp for the rest of the season. Needless to say, she hasn't been in a great mood. She had been getting along with the 3 kids, playing with them as a form of exercise. She's trying her best not to let their mother's actions color her view of them, but right now she needs her distance. Luckily, her relationship with Weaselwhisker has been good, so she's not completely alone, but I fear this has just made her trust issues worse. Fringe Mad is still afraid of the outside world, but she's getting cabin fever from just camp keeping and guard duty. For next year, she's going to plan with Small J to get her some duties outside of camp when she is able. She'd likely retire for Leaf Bears, as that's the season she has most trouble with. So, despite all that's gone down, Fringe Mod is looking toward the future. And that's it for year 3. I hope you liked the detective story I came up for Frostlily. I don't think the in-game explanations are bad, but when you get the chance to come up with something elaborate, you take it. I was also on the fence about including the whole alien abduction thing, but if the game gives you an interesting scenario, you also take that. I'm also on the lookout for some kind of conclusion to the rogue business, so I might take some creative liberties on that front. That was it for year 3. I hope you enjoyed it. Updates on future videos will be announced on my channel as posts, so please subscribe. Bye!